What trait do you most resent your parents for passing on to you? Part 2. The body cannot produce new nerve or brain cells. Turns out neurogenesis is a very real phenomenon. By the way, I was taught that the body cannot make new nervous cells this year in my senior human anatomy class, long after neurogenesis was discovered. This confused me too when I had nerve damage, and the doctor said the nerves would grow back over 3 months. That we had a permanent record. Pretty sure I've read somewhere that it is a thing, but it only has warnings about behavioral issues a student has, and that after high school it gets deleted. Take this with a salt shaker full of salt. I don't actually know what I'm talking about. 2 things. Keep these papers, they're important, don't lose them. I ended up hoarding papers all the way from first grade to senior year of high school. If you ever get a C or into a fight or cheat, you'll never go to college, and you'll be blacklisted from applying or attending any of them. I didn't really think of the impact these things had on me, and suffice to say, I feel like I'm worse off for it. That second one definitely had an impact on me. The first time I started getting poor grades in sophomore year of high school, I pretty much figured my life was over, and I started acting like it. Everything just spiraled from there. Only parts of your tongue control the different tastes. The tongue map is easy enough to prove wrong at home. Place salt on the tip of your tongue, you'll taste salt. For reasons unknown, scientists never bothered to dispute this inconvenient truth. These are the best years of your life. Dad, middle school sucks, I know. But when you get into high school, it will get a lot better. Middle school me graduating. Hell yeah! High school's gonna be awesome! High school me. This sucks. Dad, I know, but when you get into college, it's gonna get a lot better. That grades in elementary and middle school actually matter. I had a 45 in my 5th grade history class at one point, and I loved history. I just didn't like having to memorize the preamble to the Constitution and other pointless things my school made us do. I now read and study history on my own and know far more history than the average person. I know the preamble thanks to Schoolhouse Rock, old cartoon that used to come on between shows on Saturday morning. Just because you are popular doesn't mean you'll be successful. F all. Since graduating college, it's been all about networks and who you know, who likes you. I've literally asked people how they got their job, and they said they knew someone that pulled them in with no qualifications or experience. It's a tough pill to swallow. Sadly enough, that's true. And I must confess, I'm guilty of it. I got my job through a friend who I studied with. He got a financial bonus for it, and specifically, there was one guy who joined our team after me who was a temp. Due to Corona, he's gone now. Not from the world, but from our team. I admit it was also unlucky, but the point that connections count is very much valid. Nutrition. When I started elementary school, it was the 4 food groups. By high school, it was the food pyramid. And by college, it turned into my plate. You can't ever keep up, and it constantly changed, so who knows what it will turn into next. The food pyramid was specifically pushed by lobby groups for the grain industry. It's why the food pyramid had grains as the largest category, and now more reasonable recommendations have it listed in much smaller recommended portions. College professors would be more strict. The first time I started college, and a student just got up and went to the restroom, about did me in. In high school, you didn't dare just leave or be in the halls without a pass. That did not happen in my high school. I got used to it real quick though, and I actually didn't mind it. But the first time was a shock. You won't get anywhere in life without learning how to write in cursive. Every year in elementary school, my teacher said, "You'll learn cursive next year, but I'll teach you a little bit now." That happened until high school, when the teacher was surprised that half the class couldn't read cursive. One teacher told me that men used to give birth. What? I think your teacher was a seahorse. There are more people alive on Earth than have ever died. I mean, if you're old enough, that could be true. Hawaiians wanted to be a territory so they could join the US and become a state, and were overjoyed when they achieved statehood. I'm born and raised in Hawaii. This is taught outside of the state. Since elementary school, we knew that Hawaii was annexed. Queen Lilikulani was under house arrest and overthrown, and no one was happy except the 5 powerful white guys that manipulated it all. I'm not native Hawaiian, but darn. You won't have a calculator in your pocket. I had a cool Calculus 3 teacher who was the opposite. Every test was open book, because in the real world, we would always have the integration tables to refer to. Speaking about suicide drives people to commit suicide. Our school put a policy in place that disallowed any discussion surrounding suicide and mental health. Over the course of 3 years, we lost 3 students and 2 teachers to suicide. I'm now studying psychology and work in community services. Speaking about suicide saves lives. As a nurse, you're taught exactly the opposite. If you are afraid someone you love might be considering suicide, ask them. Talk about it. You can rely on authority figures to resolve your interpersonal conflicts. So very true. I have worked many jobs over many years. At each and every one, if I have conflict with another employee which affects me doing my job, management are the last people you should go to. They will just play both ends against the middle. That they're against bullying. All the schools I've been to don't care if someone is doing it. I got beaten up and told the teacher. She just said, okay, and nothing happened to the person that beat me up. I was taught in 3rd grade that the Brontosaurus was so massively big that it had a second brain positioned in its rear hips that only controlled its tail. I believed this to be a fact until I was talking with my fiancée and told her about the 2-brained Brontosaurus. She said that wasn't a thing. So we googled it, and it's just another thing she was right about. Maybe it was a misunderstanding of there being a group of motor neurons dedicated to receiving signals to control movement of the tail. Not really worth writing home about, since this is how we move, unless there was something special about this dinosaur. What is interesting though is that we have something called the enteric nervous system, which is a system of neurons in the GI tract that regulate the GI tract. It's sort of like a second brain. 95% of the body's serotonin is produced in the GI tract, which is used as a chemical messenger to do GI tract things. Recent studies suggest that gut bacteria can produce their own serotonin and other chemical messengers to influence the enteric nervous system. This holds a lot of implications in how the gut bacteria influence the brain, our mind, and our health. That I can be whatever I want when I grow up. I'm still not a fire truck. And I'm not a Ninja Turtle, unfortunately. College equals high-paying job. My husband has almost finished his cert in a trade program. I have 2 bachelors, an associate's, and a master's. He made $3 per hour more than me in the before time. I feel this so hard. You will need this for the rest of your life. Hey, I factor polynomials on a daily basis. Where do you work? High school math teacher. There's a common misconception that dry ice and elemental iodine do not have a melting point. Elemental iodine will melt at 114 degrees Celsius, but there will be so much purple gas due to high vapor pressure that it's difficult to see. Meanwhile, dry ice won't melt at atmospheric pressure, but if you increase the pressure to more than 5 atm, it should melt into a liquid. Obviously, you can't do that unless you have special equipment. I seem to vaguely remember College Chemistry 155 showing me a triangle for melting points. Teachers aren't biased. Oh, I laughed out loud at this. I definitely have favorite students. Surprise, surprise, it's the ones who try hard and are nice to me. The provinces and territories of Canada. I'm in the United States. We had to memorize them in middle school in the mid-2000s, but our teacher didn't update any political border changes that happened after the fall of the Soviet Union. So I didn't know Nunavut exists until I happened to look at a map of Canada as an adult. How much of Canada were you unaware of because of these changes? None of it. Oh, so you knew all of it? Abstinence only, sex ed. Meanwhile, there just aren't sex ed classes anymore. I'm a high schooler and have yet to be taught anything. You're not allowed to use the bathroom during lessons because when you go to work, you won't be able to use it whenever you feel like it in secondary school. There are no numbers below 0 in infant school. Your right hand is the hand you write with in nursery. I'm left-handed. If you fail your SATs, it will affect your whole life. In the UK, SATs are exams taken at the end of primary school at age 11. They are used for ranking schools, and secondary schools use them to decide what classes you'll be in for the first term. But after that, nobody cares what you got on your SATs, and it makes no difference to your life, so this was completely false. The taste buds thing. In America, in my state at least, the schools are horrible. They teach us nothing of use all year. They train us for the big end of the year tests, but they don't have any effect on our future. They drive us to do good on the test, but it's only so the schools can get money from the state if the scores are high enough. Mistakes are not okay. Well, obviously it is. You'll eventually learn from them. I have been around for this shift in education. Mistakes being okay and being given unsolvable problems are problems that haven't been solved yet. These both are on the rise in current education. You will be using cursive writing more than printing when you're older. The only thing I use it for is my signature. Other than that, it's useless. The school system switched from cursive to typing while I was in school, then expected my grade to be perfect fast typers because the curriculum now said we'd been doing it for years. I mean, in fairness, my cursive wasn't any better. I before E except with a C. Or when sounds like as in neighbor and way. That writing involves a bunch of uniform, cut and dry steps for brainstorming, with dozens of mind map worksheets, drafting, revising, editing, etc. And that this is the way real writers did it. Am now a published writer. Yeah, no, not how it works in the slightest. I never did any of that stuff. So when they tell you that you can't write a paper in an hour, and the most important test for that class is to write a paper in an hour. That blood is actually blue. Ooh, they still teach it. I've had numerous discussions with my 6th graders about it. They're taught it in elementary school by well-meaning teachers who don't have backgrounds in science. It's a hard conversation to have because I can't just say, your teacher was wrong, without students then saying, well then, why should we trust you? In the spirit of science, I love telling them that they should always be skeptical of what they hear. 6th graders have a hard time discerning healthy skepticism from outright denial though. It's a real catch-22.